Your boss accepted your resignation. Time to turn the page. Before that, there's a few things you need to tie up. Depart in a way that is professional and that is going to leave you remembered in a good way and not for leaving your best behind. So the first thing you want to do is work backwards from your last day of employment in the company. So if the start date on your offer letter is, for example, July 1, that means that your last day as an employee in your current company should be June 30. Even if that falls on a Saturday or Sunday and you wouldn't be going to the office on that day, that should be the last day of your employment. And the reason is you do not want to have any gap in employment, especially if you're on a health insurance plan, because that means that by having any gap in health insurance between employers, you're going to have to get temporary health insurance for that. And at least in Japan, this means doing some city hall paperwork so that regarding impact on taxes and things like that. It's just messy. I'm not a professional when it comes to those things, but I do know that you do not want to have a gap in employment. It's just going to create an unnecessary amount of hassle unless you're planning for that for some specific reason. Perhaps you have a non-compete that you're deciding to honor and abide by, and you're planning to have a 3 or 6 month sabbatical, or maybe you've decided to take time off for a year and pursue another interest. In that case, it's fine. But for the regular day-to-day situation where you're one employee going from one company to the next as part of your career progression, you don't want to have a gap between companies. So if the start date on your offer letter is July 1, your last day of employment at the current company should be June 30. Then, working backwards with how many days of annual leave or paid leave you have remaining, you got to decide how many of those you want to use. And if there's a lot of those, then you're going to need to balance that with the handover that is required of you or that you want to see through to leave things in good hands in your company, and find the right balance between taking that paid leave, but also having enough days that you're able to do that handover. I'll also caution you that, at least in Japan, employees are very loyal. Loyalty is a big part of the culture in Japan, and I'm sure it is with you as well. So there might be an instinct or a desire to want to do as much as possible around the time that you've just signed the offer letter. But very quickly, you're going to feel that you want to just move on. And those feelings of commitment to your current employer are very quickly going to fade. And as you start to get in the mindset of this new chapter of your life, it's going to be very soon that you're going to want to just leave everything behind. So make sure you make your checklist as simple as possible and as essential as possible. And here are a few things that you're going to want to think about. So beyond how many days of paid leave you have remaining and how many days you need to have a smooth handover, you'll also want to think about what role you're going to play in identifying your successor. Maybe you have someone already, or maybe this could be as simple as making a suggestion to the company as to who could take it over. Yes, anyone who's leaving the company, their suggestions are not going to be taken as credibly as someone who is remaining committed in the company. But if it's something that you feel you need to do, it wouldn't hurt to plan ahead and have some thoughtful suggestions for that, since it's showing a genuine intention for you to want to leave professionally and in good things in good order. What tasks or projects do you need to hand over to a successor or other members? Map that out, suggest who it should be delegated to, and perhaps those are the kinds of things you could be thinking of a little bit more in advance in order to, let's say, avoid taking on new things, for example, can be one way to prevent yourself from having too much to hand over to begin with. Any customers that you need to inform of your departure, especially if those are going to be customers for you in the future as well, you're going to want to have a polite email to them, just informing them that someone else will be following up soon, or make sure that someone on your team is aware of the status of the relationships with those customers or partners or suppliers and the state of play, so that no batons are dropped midway through something where only you know what's going on. Consider, how do you want to communicate your departure to colleagues, and what is the right way? So in big companies, an email is common because it's impossible to go around and talk to everyone. A casual thank you speech is common at smaller companies, and often the colleagues in a team or a project team will organize a going away party. That really just comes down to the culture of your environment and how things are done. But just to give you a few examples of what is common and acceptable. Consider personalized letters to colleagues where relevant. This can be a really nice touch to extend gratitude to people that have helped you out along the way, to leave things in good stead with them. And particularly if you've had some people maybe you've had some conflict with, make a sort of amends or extend a nice gesture to them, just saying that, hey, despite our differences, I'm really glad with what we've accomplished together, or something like that, so you can both feel good about moving on and not leave any bad blood behind. Collect your personal goods from the office, maybe less common these days post-COVID with less and less office presence, but if you do have anything, make a checklist for that and start moving it out. And unlink personal accounts from your professional email. This is particularly common for long-term employees who've been in the company for 5, 10, or more years. It's common, I find, for those employees to use their work email even for personal purposes because they don't like to have more than one inbox. That is dangerous because once you leave the company, you won't have access to that email anymore. So you want to make a checklist for yourself of any accounts you may have signed up for using your work email, log into that before your last day in the office, and then switch that email over to your personal email. This certainly goes for something like LinkedIn if you're using currently on a corporate account. And although you may not have access to your corporate plan, when you switch over to your personal email, you'll still be able to access your public profile and be able to retain ownership of your information, that is, on LinkedIn without having access to premium plans that your company has paid for. And finally, liquidation of stocks and equity. So you're going to want to, in most cases, cash out what you are able to cash out, unless you have a plan that allows you to keep holding on to them in a stock value. But of course, if your new company is going to be paying to offset those, then I'm not an expert on this. Just make sure that you have lined up clearly what you need to do in this regard, so that anything you need to do is handled by your last working day and or having access to the system. Okay, I hope that helps. So find the checklist down below to make sure that you can get through the conclusion of your employment at the current company smoothly and without having to worry about anything when you're on your much needed vacation.